What's going on, guys? My name is Matt, and I constantly get questions asking about what is the least someone has to spend to get into PC gaming while buying all new parts, and usually the answer is around $300 because that's around the price where you can build an entry-level Ryzen APU build. And if you guys haven't seen it, I put out a build guide recently featuring, you guessed it, a $300 gaming PC with the Ryzen 3 3200G. Going into that video, I wasn't a very big fan of APUs, but after seeing the performance, especially when overclocked, I found out that for stuff like Fortnite, the 3200G is more than capable. $300 is pretty cheap for a gaming PC using new parts, but the recent launch of the Athlon 3000G means we could make a new parts gaming PC for even cheaper. This 3000G is a Zen Plus based APU just like the 3200G, but instead of 4 cores and 4 threads, this guy is 2 cores and 4 threads. There's also a significant cut in graphics performance from Vega 8 to Vega 3 graphics. With that being said, this APU is still plenty capable for stuff like Fortnite and CSGO. Also, you can pair it with a discrete GPU later down the line for even more performance, which is something I will be testing in this video. For those who don't know what an APU is, well, it's actually a CPU and GPU combined into one chip, so no need to ask where the graphics card is. Going into this, I knew the CPU side of things would be great for budget gaming. While high core count CPUs are starting to become more common in gaming PCs, 2 cores and 4 threads is perfect for modern esports gaming. The big thing I was worried about was the Vega 3 graphics, which have about half the raw performance of the Vega 8 graphics that the 3200G has. With all this being said, I still kept my hopes high because I was a skeptic of the 3200G until I actually tried it out and saw how powerful it was for being a sub $100 APU. This 3000G has an MSRP of $50, but you can only really find it for $60 right now. The 3200G is around $100, meaning you could build my $300 gaming PC and swap the 3200G for the Athlon 3000G and bring the price down to around $260. This is pretty darn cheap and gives you a good platform to upgrade. Now, if you want an in-depth look at each of the parts in this build, why I picked them, and even learn how to put the whole thing together step by step, then I would highly recommend checking out the $300 PC build guide I referenced earlier. To test the 3000G, I simply opened up the $300 gaming PC, took out the 3200G, popped in the 3000G, and I was off to the races. Now, the 3000G cooler is slightly different from the 3200G's cooler, but I only have the APU itself, so I'll be testing the Athlon with the slightly beefier cooler that comes with the 3200G. I tested all the games at stock settings and did a few overclock to show you the performance difference, but before we get into the benchmarks, I want to very briefly go over each of the parts so you can understand what exactly is in the system. Again, for a more in-depth explanation, check out the original $300 gaming PC build guide video. For the CPU and GPU, we're of course testing the 3000G. This guy's inside my favorite AM4 motherboard, the ASRock Pro 4, which has a ton of great features like 4 DIMM slots, dual M.2 slots, and a decent VRM setup. In terms of RAM, the system's rocking 8GB of DDR4 RAM at 3200MHz and dual channel operation. For storage, the system has a 240GB SSD from Inland. The power supply is a Seasonic S12 and the case is a Deepcool Matrix 30, which for around $35 shipped is an absolute incredible value for the money. All in all, this is a great starter system, but we're going to find out today whether or not it's worth it to go with the 3000G, or if it's a better idea to pony up a few extra bucks for the 3200G. For testing, I went ahead and tested 4 popular titles that someone might play on this system. These include Fortnite, CSGO, Rainbow Six Siege, and Overwatch. So now that you've heard about the hardware, we're going to get into the benchmarks. But first, I want to take a minute to talk about a platform for anyone looking to pick up some new skills in 2020. Skillshare is an online learning community for creative and curious people. They offer topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and more. I've been wanting to upgrade my channel logo for a while, and I've recently been following a course on Skillshare to learn about the basics of logo design. Now, I've got a long way to go, but I think with a few more Skillshare courses, I will be ready to unleash a new Tech by Matt logo onto the world. But don't take my word for it, I would highly recommend trying it out yourself. By joining Skillshare using the link in the description, you'll get 2 whole months absolutely free, which will give you plenty of time to explore Skillshare's thousands of courses and figure out if it's right for you. The more I look through Skillshare, the more courses I find that look interesting to me, including video production stuff for improving the quality of my channel, and even a productivity class from one of my favorite YouTubers, Thomas Frank. If you've been wanting to learn something like animation, user interface design, or music production, then there's no better time than the present, and no better place than Skillshare. Again, by clicking the link in the description, you're going to get 2 full months of Skillshare premium membership for absolutely free. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to your regularly scheduled content. So like I said before, I tested all esports games. Playing stuff that's more graphically intensive isn't a very good idea, especially using the Athlon's integrated Vega 3 graphics. I started things off at stock settings with no overclocks. Also, I played all these games on 720p low settings to give the system a fighting chance. Starting out with Fortnite, again at 720p, everything on low, this little APU was actually able to average right around 60 FPS, which at these settings looked pretty awful, but the game performed decently well. In comparison, the 3200G was able to play Fortnite at 1080p pro settings, which is the same but epic view distance, at slightly above 60 FPS, which felt similarly smooth but was visually much more pleasing. Moving on to Overwatch at 720p low, the 3000G managed a respectable 77 FPS average. This was a really good experience, and I personally would be fine to play with this level of performance. In contrast, at 1080p with slightly higher settings, the 3200G averaged 91 FPS. In CSGO at 720p low, the system receives an average of 127. This was a good experience, but it still doesn't help the fact that I'm awful at CSGO. Again, for comparison, the 3200G could play CSGO at 1080p with the same low settings with slightly higher frame rates. Finally, I tested Rainbow Six Siege using the built-in benchmark at 720p low. The 3000G put out a respectable 65 FPS average, which seemed pretty smooth. Compare this to the 3200G, which plays this game at 1080p and received an average of 76 FPS. As you can see, for esports gaming in 720p low, the 3000G does get the job done decently well. If you're still thinking or are on the edge about the 3000G, then let's talk about overclocking. In about 90 seconds, I booted into the BIOS, changed the CPU frequency to 3.9 GHz at 1.36 volts, and changed the graphics core to 1500 MHz at 1.2 volts. This was super simple and the results are amazing. Overclocking the CPU and GPU in the 3000G took the average FPS from 65 to 85 in Rainbow Six Siege. This was a 30% increase in performance for 2 minutes of work. So if you're getting the 3000G, overclocking it is highly recommended. Finally, let's talk about the option to upgrade to a dedicated graphics card. Let's say it's been a few months and you've saved up some money for a dedicated graphics card like this one. This is an RX 460 that I got new for right around $60. This may sound super cheap, but compared to the Vega 3 graphics, this guy is a beast. I installed this card in the system to run a quick test and show you the performance you can get. In Rainbow Six with the overclock and the RX 460, the system received a 192 FPS average. This is an almost 300% increase in performance over the stock 3000G using the Vega 3 graphics. So with all this out there, would I recommend you get the Athlon 3000G? Honestly, this is a tough one. I'm not normally the type to say just wait longer and save up some more money, but unless you absolutely don't have the money or can't wait, then the 3000G may be okay. But if you can save up $30 more for the 3200G, then you're gonna get a much better gaming experience and an even better CPU to pair with a dedicated graphics card in the future. With all this being said, I still think the Athlon 3000G is a pretty cool chip. Being able to play stuff like Fortnite and Overwatch on a $50 or $60 APU is pretty awesome, and I'm super excited to see what the future holds for APUs. So yeah guys, I think this wraps this video up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Remember to click the link in the description. Also consider subscribing for more PC and tech related content in the future. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.